What you're about to see is not just another routine hearing, it's a full-blown political showdown. Senator Cory Booker goes straight at Kristi Noem, accusing her of losing control of her own agency and violating the very Constitution she swore to uphold. Backed by documented cases and explosive claims, Booker lays out a stark ultimatum: step down or face impeachment. And as the tension escalates, what unfolds is a moment that could have serious consequences far beyond this hearing.
Now it's Senator Booker's turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, you're in charge of your agency. The buck stops with you, correct?
I'm in charge of my agency, what?
The buck stops with you,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
And you had to swear an oath to the Constitution before you took this job, right?
Correct.
So one of the most sacrosanct ideals of our nation, enshrined in our Constitution, is freedom, is liberty. Mm-hmm. It is an idea that the government has a very high standard should they take away liberty and freedom from an American citizen. How many U.S. citizens has DHS detained as of last October?
Senator, if you're talking about detained and arrested, is that those that have been violating and obstructing our law enforcement operations? Is that what you're referencing? Because it could be hundreds and hundreds. We have faced violent riots across the country,
you are
specifically in Portland and in Minneapolis.
The only people you've detained are committing crimes, but you and I both know that's not true.
I haven't said that. I didn't
so
say
then
that.
how
I asked
many
which ones you
people
were referencing.
Have you detained?
I can't give you an accurate number because we've literally detained and arrested many for those obstruction of law enforcement operations, and also
public
others
records,
that had probable
let me tell you
cause.
what my staff researched.
And then released once
May I
yes.
continue? Public records are showing that over 170 incidents of your agency unlawfully taking away the liberties and freedoms of American citizens. This includes 20 children, 20 American kids that your agency detained. How long can your agency detain an American citizen?
We don't detain children and separate them from their parents. Those parents have chosen
You're telling me
to keep
under
their
oath
child
right now.
with
Hold on.
them.
I just want to be clear. You're telling me under oath right now that your agency has not detained American children.
Those parents have chosen to keep their children with them. We don't separate families like the Biden
hold on.
administration
Let me
did.
continue.
We keep them together, and parents
please
have the
let me
option
continue.
on if they want their child with them or not with them.
How long do detentions last when you detain an American citizen? How long do they last?
We don't detain American citizens, and if there's probable cause.
Let me give you, because you are not speaking truthfully under oath. Isaiah Pena Salcedo, a U.S. citizen living in California, was detained more than 70 hours, almost 3 days, even after he showed ICE agents his passport. My colleague, Senator Blumenthal, gave you example after example. He brought people here who had something else we Americans consider sacrosanct: our home, our property. Your masked agents jumping out of unmarked cars have broken into, considerable property damage occurring, into American citizens' homes. Case after case of this, and you sit here before me and claim the buck stops with you, but you don't even know the names of these individuals. I ran New Jersey's largest municipal police department. When my officers engaged in misconduct, you can be damn well sure I knew about it and I investigated it. And yet you have situations where your officers are violating the sanctity of people's homes, arresting and detaining them and holding their children. And you're acting as if you don't know about it and saying that under oath. Miramar Martinez, who is here right now, on her way to church, an American citizen going to church, not just to worship, but to donate clothing. Your officers shot her multiple times. The case was thrown out of court, and you represent here that you don't know about it. In New Jersey, are you aware of your officers' activities in places like schools? Are you aware of your officers' activities at our public schools.
Sir, we don't go into schools and do targeted law enforcement operations. We do targeted law enforcement operations like other agencies
So you're
and law
telling me that
enforcement
ICE
do.
officers entered the grounds of a high school in Minneapolis? That's a fact. Elementary school children in New Jersey are terrified of your agents. When they came upon a school bus stop, they fled. Another school, a higher education, Columbia University, your agents reportedly lied to students, told them they were searching for a missing person to gain access to private spaces, to non-public areas of campus. Secretary Noem, these are kids. They're terrified in our communities. How do you think that affects them when children in my state go running, fleeing, and often you all pursue children, throwing them to the ground, getting on their backs, putting them in handcuffs? I want to talk to you about this incredible empire of for-profit companies that are profiting at rates we've never seen, and the way you're using money. Let's drill down on the warehouses that DHS has been buying over the last several months, totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. Are you familiar with the acquisition of a warehouse DHS recently bought in Roxbury Township, New Jersey?
Yes.
You are familiar with that?
Mm-hmm. I'm
Do you
familiar
know
that
how
it's...
much you spent for it?
No, sir, I do not.
$129.3 million. Do you know how much it was assessed for in New Jersey?
Sir, we're purchasing centers across the country to build efficiency into our detention system.
Efficiency to
so that
me,
we
as a person who's run tight budgets before and had taxpayer dollars, you paid $129.3 million for a facility in my state that was assessed at less than half of that, at $62 million. To work for a president that says he's a great deal maker, I can't believe he thinks that you're a great deal maker. But what's worse than that is that the Roxbury Township Council, comprised entirely of Republicans, voted unanimously early this year to oppose that facility. My office tried to facilitate a meeting between DHS and local officials so that ICE could hear their concerns, yet DHS did not even respond. That is unacceptable, that you all would enter a town, you wouldn't even follow environmental reviews or have conversations with local officials about the resources, from emergency resources to fire resources and more, that you're going to pull down. You didn't even have a conversation. Secretary Noem, do you comply with court orders?
Yes, we do
Your
comply with
agency
court
complies
orders.
with court orders.
Yes, we comply with federal court orders.
You were saying under oath that you do, and yet we know in January the chief judge, Republican appointed for the Federal District of Minnesota, found that ICE had violated nearly 100 court orders since January 1st alone. In my state of New Jersey, last month, the chief of staff to Deputy Attorney General admitted in my state that in the New Jersey District Court that the government had violated 52 separate court orders, all involving cases where immigrants successfully challenged the legality of their detention. So this again is a constitution that you swore an oath to, and one of the most important ideals is that no one is above the law. You are violating the separation of powers, violating court orders, and routinely violating the civil rights of Americans. This is a reckless and out-of-control agency that you are responsible for. You seem to have no situational awareness whatsoever of some of the most egregious examples of Americans being completely attacked, violated, undermined in accordance with our laws by their own government. And this is what is phenomenal to me, is immigration was your president's number one issue, overwhelmingly popular with the American people. But now it's overwhelmingly unpopular. And it's not because you are deporting dangerous people that everybody here wants out of our country. No, It's because you're going into our schools. You're terrorizing our children. You're detaining children. You're arresting Americans. You're breaking into our homes. You're terrorizing our streets. You're violating our rights to peacefully protest again and again and again.
None of
and then
that
when a
is true.
court tells you
None
to
of
stop,
that is true.
and then when a court
You are
tells
trying
you to stop,
to impede
you
us
violate
from enforcing
judges'
the law
orders, not in
and
a
getting
partisan
dangerous
way,
criminals off of our streets
Republican-appointed
so
and
we don't have more
Democratic-appointed.
families like the ones that are
Don't
sitting
sit
behind
there
me.
and tell me that
Lost
you are
their children. They're
responsible
gone forever.
for the running of your agency when you're not even aware. Either you are utterly incompetent or you are violating laws with impunity. You should step down from your position. If you don't, you should be removed by this president. And if not, Congress should impeach you.
I appreciate the encouragement.
What Cory Booker did in that hearing wasn't loud, chaotic, or theatrical in the way viral politics often is. It was something far more dangerous for the person sitting across from him. It was precise, methodical, relentless. And that's exactly why Kristi Noem looked increasingly cornered as the exchange unfolded. Because when you strip away the slogans, the talking points, the polished appearances on cable news, what Booker forced into the spotlight was a simple, uncomfortable question. What does leadership actually mean when things go wrong? And more importantly, who owns the consequences? Cory Booker didn't let her hide behind abstractions. He took her own words, "The buck stops with me," and turned them into a standard she simply could not meet in real time. And this is where the irony becomes almost unbearable. Because in Washington, claiming total control over an agency is usually meant to project strength. It's supposed to signal competence, authority, command. But in this case, it did the exact opposite. The more Noem insisted she was in charge, the more glaring her lack of awareness became. Booker wasn't asking obscure, technical questions buried in policy minutia. He was citing specific cases: American citizens allegedly detained, children caught in enforcement actions, incidents documented in public records, court rulings piling up that suggest systemic violations. These aren't fringe accusations. These are the kinds of issues that, if you truly run an agency, should be impossible to ignore. And yet, again and again, the answers drifted into that familiar fog. I don't have that number. We don't do that. That's not accurate. It's not just evasive, it's revealing, because at a certain point, repeated ignorance stops sounding like a lack of information and starts sounding like a lack of control. But let's take a step back and appreciate the deeper contradiction here, because it's almost too perfect. You have an agency tasked with enforcing the law, an agency operating with immense power over people's lives, their freedom, their homes, and at the same time, you have mounting evidence, including court findings, suggesting that this very agency may be repeatedly violating those same laws. And when confronted with that contradiction under oath, the response isn't accountability. It's denial layered on top of distance. It's the political equivalent of saying, if I don't personally see it, then it doesn't really count, which would be convenient if it weren't also completely incompatible with the idea of executive responsibility. Because leadership doesn't just mean taking credit when things go right, it means knowing exactly what's happening when things go wrong and owning it. And then comes the financial piece, which somehow makes the entire situation even more absurd. Spending over $129 million on a facility valued at roughly half that amount, bypassing local concerns, ignoring community input, and presenting it all as operational efficiency. Efficiency has become one of those words in politics that sounds impressive until you actually examine what it's attached to. Efficient at what? Efficient at expanding detention capacity? Efficient at scaling a system that is already under legal scrutiny? Efficient at moving faster than oversight can keep up? Because from the outside, what Booker highlighted doesn't look like efficiency. It looks like acceleration without direction, a machine growing larger and more aggressive, while its leadership insists everything is under control, despite mounting evidence to the contrary. And perhaps the most striking part of the entire exchange is how it reframes the narrative around immigration enforcement itself. Booker doesn't argue against enforcing the law. In fact, he acknowledges that removing dangerous individuals is broadly supported. That's not the controversial part. The controversy, the real political danger, comes from what happens when enforcement expands beyond that boundary, when it starts touching citizens, when it reaches into schools, when children are running from agents instead of feeling protected by the system around them. That's when the issue stops being about policy and starts being about trust. And once that trust erodes, no amount of messaging can fully restore it. So when Booker closes with that stark ultimatum, step down or face impeachment, it doesn't land as political theater. It lands as the logical conclusion of everything he just laid out. Because he frames the situation in a way that leaves no comfortable middle ground. Either the leadership is unaware of serious constitutional violations happening under its watch, or it's aware and allowing them to continue. Neither option is defensible. And that's what makes the moment so powerful. Not the volume, not the drama, but the clarity. In a system built on blurred lines and carefully crafted ambiguity, Booker forced a binary choice into the open, and for a brief moment, stripped the politics away entirely.